since I'm having problems yet again completing my projects, I'll procrastinate yet again by talking about another kit, or several other kits this time. And because there's a specific aircraft that has been in the current news of the day. Can you guess which one it is? Yes. And so I thought, I have a bunch of these from different makers. And I also have some books. And this isn't all the books I have. These are just typical books that most people might have. Well, even I have some other typical books that for some reason I can't find. Oh, anyway, and there's my collections of aircraft pictures from when I worked at Edwards Air Force Base in the early 1980s. Huh. Yes, it's what is since the 1980s has been called the F-15E Strike Eagle. Just one book is not going to tell you everything that you need to know, or even tell you stuff that you don't need to know, especially these, I used to love the In Action series, but I now know they are highly deficient. And this is the first issue. If you notice, $3.95 printed on price. Anyway, so it's so complicated, the development of the F-15 and moving into what today we call the Strike Eagle. So in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, Europeans were developing the Panavia Tornado, and they like to call it the MRCA, or multi-role combat aircraft, because the Western governments were getting upset about the cost of new aircraft, and they wanted to, can it do more than just be a fighter? So the U.S. Congress was the same way. So very interesting. So, they had a true multi-role combat aircraft in the F-4 Phantom II, but that was developed over decades, and especially once it got involved in trying to fight in Vietnam, they finally ended up with the F-4 Echo and later models, F-4 Echo and the lightweight F-4 Foxtrot, which were true dual role or multi-role aircraft because they had built-in guns and they could carry bombs and air-to-air missiles, and they could. So anyway, but they wanted a new aircraft, so they came up with this program called, and it's in this book. It's called the. I lost my place again. Dual Role Fighter Demonstrator, or DRFD. Now, this is very interesting. This book says that term or the phrase or the name Strike Eagle was the original name. And then down here, it says that now, it says right here, is now called the F-15 Echo DRFD, which I never heard that. I was in the Air Force. Nobody ever called it the F-15 Echo DRFD. No, it was always, everybody called it Strike Eagle. What the heck? Anyway, and again, so this is a example of how these books don't don't always help you. And that's why I have so many books, because they don't give you everything. All right, I gotta catch my breath. Okay, there's so much information. As I said, it's so convoluted with the development of the F-15, not just the Strike Eagle, but all the. It's so anyway. So I'm gonna go over the common problem here with okay, so the F-15. So of all these kits, only one has the correct wheel, main gear. All right, I finally found this is in the revised edition of this book, and this is a photo of the early wheel. Why do I have a big shadow? Anyway, my goodness. Anyway, there's a photo of the wheel. This is the test and evaluation aircraft, which there were 20 of, and some model company, that you're confused. Some of them, people will call them A or B, and that's not correct. Anyway, so this wheel was used on the test and evaluation aircraft, then the production Alpha and Bravo aircraft. Oh, yeah. It's painted black with white hub. Black with a white hub. Now we're in this version. Now, here is the wheel for the newer versions. Now, this book also claims that the landing gear for Charlie, Delta, and Echo were strengthened. And these are the new wheels for Charlie, Delta, and Echo. So they're painted white with a white hub. And they are different. And I'm telling you this because only one of these kits gives you the correct wheel. And one of these kits actually gives you a correct early wheel for the test Alpha and Bravo versions. which is, anyway, that's good to know. Keep it for your spares. And the majority of these kits give you bullshit wheels. Well, here's something I can talk about. So this conformal fuel pallet, which also included some electronics, this was not developed for the Strike Eagle. And this was not developed by the U.S. Air Force. The conformal fuel pallets, as McDonnell Douglas called it, was developed as a private thing, by McDonnell Douglas. And they were pushing it for use on the Delta version. But it was gained acceptance on the Echo version because with all those bombs, it needed a heck of a lot more fuel. So, and then here's something else, the tail hook. Of all these kits, only 2 give you a tail hook. And one of them is in the extended position, and the other one is I think it's in the raised position. And the rest of them don't give you a tail hook. And here's something that I have to explain. Oh, I got to find that foot. That's what anyway, so is it in this book? See, I have to jump around between the books. This is the problem with having the books don't show you. You don't get all the information in just one book. Okay, So for the tail hook, I've had to go all the way back to this old in action book. Here you have this light area. Those are the doors for the tail hook. And you'll see there's a fairing. This is a fairing. Now on the Strike Eagle, some of the first Strike Eagles, they don't have a fairing. So the very end of the hook is exposed. It's actually sticking out. So I've had to go to the big book to find an image of the Strike Eagle. There's the tail hook. There's no fairing on it. So a lot of Strike Eagles don't have the tail hook faired in. Also, you see the turkey feathers have been removed from the afterburners. And this, the caption on this photo says this is a Strike Eagle during Desert Storm in 1991. So you can see no fairing over the tail hook, no feathers on the afterburners. Now, that brings it, so none of these kits give you an exposed tail hook. Also, they do try, some of them, but not all of them, do try to give you the featherless afterburner options, and none of them are very good. But they screwed up on the tail hook. So they're all wrong on that.